You don't suffer because of feelings. You suffer because you hold them. A feeling by its nature is temporary. It rises, it peaks, and if allowed, it passes. But what most people do is very different. They grab the feeling, hold it tightly, replay it, analyze it, judge it, and revive it until it becomes a permanent part of their inner landscape. The original moment that caused the sadness, anger, jealousy, or disappointment may have lasted seconds, but the emotional echo lasts for days, months, sometimes even years, because we refuse to release it. In reality, the suffering is not in the feeling, it's in the resistance to letting it go. We create a loop inside the mind. Something happens, a feeling appears, and instead of watching it rise and fall like a wave, we start building stories around it. Why did he say that? I should have done better. I can't believe this happened to me. I'm not enough. These stories become the fuel that keeps the feeling alive long after the moment has passed. The feeling becomes intertwined with our identity. We stop saying I feel sad and start saying I am sad. We no longer say I feel hurt, but I am hurt. That shift in language is also a shift in consciousness. It is the moment when a passing cloud turns into a permanent sky. Human beings are naturally designed to feel deeply. Emotions are messengers. They arrive with something to tell us and then leave. But because we cling to them, we never allow them to finish their message. Instead of learning, we get stuck. Instead of growing, we loop. We keep feelings that hurt us because we think they define us or protect us or warn us. Pain becomes familiar, and anything familiar becomes strangely comforting. We choose the known suffering over the unknown liberation. Often the mind convinces us that holding on to pain keeps us safe. If I stay angry, no one can hurt me again. If I stay guarded, I'll never be betrayed. If I stay guilty, I'll remain careful. But this way of living is like keeping your hand on a hot stove to remind yourself not to touch it again, forgetting that the constant burn is doing far more damage. Pain does not protect, awareness protects. Emotion does not guide, understanding guides. We confuse the two, and so we carry burdens we were never meant to carry. What happens when you allow a feeling to simply exist without holding it? You begin to notice that every emotion has a life cycle. It starts as a sensation, tightness in the chest, heaviness in the stomach, tension in the jaw. It peaks, it vibrates, and when you breathe into it instead of resisting it, the sensation dissolves. This is how the nervous system resets itself naturally. But when you attach thoughts to a feeling, you block the cycle. You trap the emotion inside your body like a bird in a cage. This trapped energy becomes stress, anxiety, emotional exhaustion, even physical illness. Letting go is not forgetting. It's not pretending. It's not suppressing. It is simply allowing life to move. It is recognizing that emotions are visitors, not tenants. They come to teach you something and leave when the lesson is understood. To let go means to stop rehearsing the past, to stop feeding the wound, to stop refreshing the emotional memory. It means to stop identifying with what hurt you and start identifying with the part of you that can heal. Ultimately, suffering is not a punishment. It is a signal. It is the mind and body saying, you are holding something that no longer belongs to you. If you listen carefully, every painful emotion carries the same message: release me. When you understand this truth, you stop fearing your emotions. You stop fighting them. You stop collecting them like old letters. You begin to trust the natural flow of life again. And in that flow, you realize something deeply freeing. Pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional. Because suffering is the result of holding on. Let the feeling come, let it speak, let it go, and you will find a stillness within you that no past wound can touch. Awareness is not simply noticing that you feel sad, angry, or anxious. It is the deeper act of observing the movement of your inner world without becoming lost in it. Most people live inside their emotions as if they were rooms with no doors. When anger rises, they believe they are the anger. When fear arrives, they believe they are the fear. But awareness teaches you something profoundly different. You are not the emotion. You are the witness of it. And that simple shift becomes the first doorway to emotional freedom. When an emotion appears, it usually comes with a story. This always happens to me. People don't respect me. I'm not good enough. These stories feel real because they are automatic, and over the years they become so deeply rooted that we stop questioning them. But awareness interrupts this cycle. It allows you to pause and see the story instead of blindly living inside it. When you can observe the story, you gain the choice to rewrite it. Without awareness, you react. With awareness, you respond. And the difference between reaction and response is the difference between living unconsciously and living freely. Think of awareness like a light inside a dark room. When the room is unlit, every shape looks threatening. You fear what you cannot see clearly. But when light fills the room, everything becomes understandable. You realize that the monster you thought was hiding in the corner was just a coat hanging on a chair. In the same way, many emotions feel overwhelming, not because they are too strong, but because they are misunderstood. Awareness illuminates them. It reveals their shape, their origin, their pattern. And once you can see something clearly, it loses its power to control you. Awareness also helps you recognize the space between the trigger and your reaction. For most people, that space is invisible. Something happens and the reaction is immediate. Someone criticizes you and suddenly you defend yourself. Someone ignores you and instantly you feel hurt. These reflexes feel natural, but they are learned habits, habits that can be changed. When you cultivate awareness, that invisible space expands. You begin to notice what is happening inside you before the reaction spills outward. You feel the tightening in your chest, the heat rising in your face, the thoughts forming in your mind. And in that moment of noticing, you have a choice. Do I want to follow this reaction, or do I want to release it? That single moment becomes the birthplace of emotional freedom. Developing awareness requires patience. It is not something you achieve once and then keep forever. It is a practice. Some days you may feel completely centered, able to observe every emotion with calm clarity. Other days may pull you back into old patterns. But even then, awareness grows each time you catch yourself. Every time you notice I'm reacting, instead of losing yourself inside the reaction, you strengthen the muscle of observation. And with practice, the distance between you and your emotions becomes wider. You no longer drown in them. You watch them rise and fall like waves. The real power of awareness lies in its honesty. It shows you not just the emotions you like, but also the ones you avoid. It reveals when you're pretending to be fine. It uncovers the thoughts you hide even from yourself. And though this honesty can be uncomfortable, it is also liberating. Because you cannot heal what you refuse to look at. You cannot release what you refuse to acknowledge. Awareness is the first act of courage. It is the moment you choose truth over avoidance, clarity over confusion, freedom over habit. When you see your emotions clearly, you stop fighting them. You stop fearing them. And when the fear dissolves, what remains is a quiet power. The power to feel without being controlled. The power to experience without being trapped. This is emotional freedom, and it always begins with awareness. Emotional pain has a strange way of growing when you try to run from it. The fear you avoid becomes louder. The sadness you push away becomes heavier. The anger you suppress finds new ways to leak into your life, through irritability, tension, or sudden outbursts that surprise even you. Most people believe that ignoring their pain will make it disappear, but emotional pain does not vanish when avoided. It waits. It settles into the hidden spaces of your mind and body, becoming a quiet echo that follows you wherever you go. And the more you resist it, the more fiercely it returns, because avoidance is the fuel that keeps emotional suffering alive. Understanding your pain does not mean drowning in it. It means turning toward it with curiosity instead of fear. When something hurts inside you, there is always a reason. Maybe a boundary was crossed. Maybe an old wound was touched. Maybe a part of you feels unseen, unheard, or undervalued. Pain is never random. It always carries information, and when you choose to listen, it becomes a guide rather than a prison. But when you refuse to look, that same pain becomes a shadow that grows with time, pressing on you more forcefully until you finally stop running. Emotional pain persists because unexamined feelings continue to repeat themselves. A suppressed memory does not stay silent. An ignored fear does not disappear. A buried sadness does not die. They wait for moments of vulnerability to resurface. This is why you may find yourself reacting strongly to small things, because the emotion underneath has remained unresolved for years. When you avoid understanding your feelings, you are not protecting yourself, you are prolonging your suffering. You are extending the life of something that only wants your attention so it can finally be released. Facing emotional pain requires honesty. It asks you to question why certain moments shake you, why certain words hurt you, why certain people trigger you. These questions are not comfortable, but they are essential. When you allow yourself to explore the deeper roots of your pain, you begin to see the patterns behind your reactions. Maybe you discover that your anger is just a mask for fear. Maybe you realize your jealousy comes from insecurity, not from others' actions. Maybe you learn that the pain you feel today mirrors a hurt you never addressed years ago. Understanding creates clarity, and clarity dissolves the power that pain once held. Imagine holding a tightly closed fist for many years. The muscles tense, the hand aches, and the pain becomes constant. But the moment you open your hand even slightly, relief begins. Emotional pain works the same way. The more tightly you suppress it, the more it hurts. The moment you start opening, even if only gently, something inside you loosens. This softness, the willingness to understand, is what begins the healing process. You do not need to change the emotion immediately. You only need to stop running from it. When you sit with an emotion and ask, "What are you trying to show me?" it loses its intensity. Pain becomes lighter when it is seen. Fear becomes manageable when acknowledged. Sadness becomes meaningful when understood. Avoidance tells the emotion it must fight harder to be noticed. Curiosity tells it you are ready to listen. And listening is what begins to set you free. There is a quiet courage in facing your emotional pain. It is the courage to meet yourself without judgment. It is the strength to let your inner world speak. When you choose understanding over avoidance, you begin to reclaim parts of yourself that you abandoned long ago. You realize that your pain was never your enemy, it was your messenger. And the moment you receive the message, the emotion no longer needs to stay. Healing begins not when the pain ends, but when the avoidance ends. ChatGPT said, Bar. Nene, strength is not something you stumble upon by accident, nor is it a gift reserved for a select few. It is something you build deliberately, slowly, through the way you choose to face life. Many people believe peace is found by escaping challenges, avoiding uncomfortable conversations, hiding from painful truths, stepping away from anything that disrupts their comfort. But avoiding life does not make you stronger, it makes you fragile. A mind that is never tested becomes easily overwhelmed. A heart that is never stretched becomes easily broken. Real peace is not the absence of storms. It is the ability to remain grounded while the storm passes around you. When you train the mind, you build resilience. You learn to sit with discomfort instead of running from it. You learn to observe chaos without losing your center. Life will always bring moments of uncertainty, loss, frustration, and disappointment. These experiences are not signs that something is wrong with your life. They are signs that you are alive. Every emotion, every challenge, every setback is part of the human journey. The question is not how to escape these moments, but how to strengthen yourself so they no longer control you. A disciplined mind does not react blindly. It does not collapse under pressure. It does not allow fear to dictate decisions. Instead, it pauses. It reflects. It chooses its response carefully. This discipline is not built through books or theories. It is built through lived experiences. When something hurts you and you learn to breathe through it instead of lashing out, you grow. When you face a fear and do not let it stop you, you grow. When you stand in the middle of emotional turbulence and still make choices aligned with your values, you grow. Every challenge becomes a piece of your inner training. Escaping life only postpones your growth. The difficulty you avoid today becomes a bigger obstacle tomorrow. The uncomfortable emotion you suppress becomes a heavier burden later. When you avoid life, you signal to your mind that you are not strong enough, and your mind believes you. It begins to treat every difficulty as a threat. But when you face life with an open heart and a steady mind, You show yourself that you can handle more than you thought. Slowly, your mind begins to trust you. It stops panicking at the first sign of discomfort. It begins to relax because it knows you have the strength to navigate whatever comes. Inner strength is built the same way physical strength is built, through resistance. You cannot strengthen a muscle by avoiding weight. You strengthen it by gradually increasing what you can carry. The same is true for the mind. When you challenge your thinking, when you stretch your emotional limits, when you sit with discomfort instead of fleeing from it, you build a mind that is flexible, stable, and resilient. This kind of mind becomes a source of peace because it does not crumble under pressure. It adapts, it learns, it expands. A peaceful life is not one without challenges. It is one where challenges no longer steal your peace. This peace comes from training your attention, your reactions, your interpretations. It comes from cultivating patience, practicing awareness, choosing clarity over chaos. The more disciplined your mind becomes, the less you are controlled by external events. You stop being a victim of circumstances and begin to live as the author of your inner world. When you understand that every challenge is an invitation, every emotion is a teacher, and every difficulty is part of your training, life stops feeling like an enemy. You stop trying to escape it and start engaging with it more deeply. And in that engagement, in that willingness to face life fully, you discover a strength that cannot be shaken, a strength that comes from within, a strength that creates true peace.